What is up, everybody? Welcome on into Alarm Fantasy Football. And as you can see, no Iggy today. This is a Coop Classic, El Clasico, a solo dolo. Uh, Folks might remember from a couple years ago, I used to do solo shows every Monday, every Friday. Every Monday, I would break down the information, what's going on in these games, what we saw yesterday, all the nitty gritty behind the scenes stuff. And then every Friday, I would pop back in and break down every matchup for the upcoming week. Since then, we've had more people hanging out with us, more people on the stream, more people working at Fantasy Line. So I've been doing it with Iggy. We've been breaking it all down together every Monday, but he's not here today. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to hit on every single one of these games. Uh, Basically, what I do is we all kind of hang out. We watch Red Zone. We maybe have one game on the second TV. Maybe you have the Patriots game on and we're watching them. Uh, but you don't get a chance to see everything and watch every single play. Even I have not gotten through every single game. I go back and watch them in the morning. I watched about half of them, but I've combed through all the stats. I pulled up all the information from all the different sites. So big shout out to Pro Football Reference, Pro Football Focus, FTN, uh, Fantasy Alarm ourselves, Fantasy Points Data Suite. I go through and I check and make sure that we got all the information from the behind the scenes that you might have missed. You know, sometimes when you look at the box score and a guy gets 15 targets and another guy gets 8, you might think one guy played way more than the other, but maybe they both played the same amount. Maybe one ran more routes than the other and could be a better option moving forward. So that's what we're doing here today. We're going through, we're hitting on all the key metrics from behind the scenes. I'm going to try and get you guys in and out of here within a half hour, but that's probably not going to happen. So why don't we jump in, hit on the first game here, Falcons at Colts. And this one on the Falcons side, at least, was fairly textbook, right? You have London and Mooney playing monster snap shares. They play virtually the whole game. You have Pitts, who has been one of the biggest snap share guys in the league, second only behind Trey McBride at tight end. He played a big snap share, didn't do a whole lot of his targets, though he did have that one end zone target that was just underthrown. That would have been a long touchdown, would have salvaged his day. But he's still a fairly consistent guy. Uh, David Sills, technically the wide receiver 3 in this game, but doesn't really matter much. The one interesting thing from this game, besides Tyler Algier, vulturing the touchdowns, is that Bijan Robinson actually has been running a lot more routes at wide receiver. Basically, what they've been doing is rather than having David Sills be a full-time guy, they just kind of move Bijan to wide receiver. Him and Devon Achane are running nearly 10 wide receiver routes a game. So you'll see a lot of snaps with Algier and Bijan on the field at the same time, and he ran 10 routes for a wide receiver spot. So Bijan's still going to be awesome. He's a must start every week. Sometimes other guys score touchdowns, and he wasn't the only one today. So not really worried about any of those guys, London, Mooney, Pitts, use them where you got to. On the Colts side, tough matchup for Michael Pittman. We knew it was going to be going in. We warned you guys about A.J. Terrell and about that setup, that you could potentially see more of the other guys with Pittman having a tough matchup, and we did. Alec Pierce has been very good. So like Pittman and Pierce, they run every route every week. Josh Downs is really only a part-time slot guy, as we know. And Tyler Warren also running a big route share. So, I mean, for me, I'm going to continue to start Pittman, but Pierce is a guy that's not just a boom bust field stretcher anymore. He is a guy that has a pretty consistent floor and also has a shot at a big one every single week. So he's gone from being our number one streamer. He's been the Tyler Algier of the wide receivers for us, but he's gone from being that to being a guy that needs to be rostered in a lot of leagues. So if he didn't get added this week, now's the time to definitely add him. As we all know, Jonathan Taylor, a candidate for Offensive Player of the Year, possibly even MVP. Dude is just incredible. Put on a big show over there, and Daniel Jones must start every week. So pretty straightforward in that morning game. Next game here, let's look at the Saints-Panthers 17-7 classic trap game. Now, we pointed this out, man, and we talked about how risky it was to use the Panthers as 5-point favorites in any sort of Survivor League or anything like that. The Panthers now, since 2021, they've been favored 10 times, and not only have they not covered any of those games, they've lost every one of those games. So actually, this would be the 11th time. Going into yesterday, 10 times. So be very careful betting on the Panthers ever. On the Saints side of the ball here, Devon Bailey actually led the team in snaps. Chris Olave was obviously right there with him, and Olave got a bunch of targets. I think what you saw is, Olave would have these big plays come out of the game, and then you would see Cooks and Tipton mix in. But it looks like it's going to be Devon Bailey and Chris Olave as the top two options on this team. In deeper leagues, Bailey's got to be added. I mean, I added him going into this week just to see. But it's probably going to be Olave and Bailey as the top guys here. With Juwan Johnson, He has had a big route participation lately. This week, only 22 of 31 routes. He did have the 50-yard play. He scored the touchdown. He got everything done for us. We're going to monitor that situation. I think with the rare game script where they were winning, Foster Moreau, the inline blocking tight end, just played a lot more obvious rundowns. So he was in there doing his thing. And then you saw Alvin Kamara. I mean, when the team is in a rare positive game script, he did look pretty good. I mean, he got stuffed on his one goal line carry. Then they gave the next one to Taysom Hill. But 115 yards from scrimmage, he dominated the snaps. He gave up a few pass downs to Devin Neal, but we're not worried about that. This is why you don't drop starting running backs to the waiver wire, not guys that are playing a big snap share. So I know there are a bunch of articles out there saying drop him. If he was dropped, add him up. Absolutely. On the Panthers side, Rico Dowdle dominated the snaps. We know what Dave Canales wants to do. He likes to get the ball rolling. He likes to get these guys moving with consistency. His that's why when they were splitting the backfield, he still gave everybody the entire drive. His whole thought process is you need to continue to get those snaps to get the wheels going. So, he probably talked to Chuba Hubbard and said, "Hey, that's our philosophy. You know that. We're going to let Rico get the work here. We're going to let him try to earn his next contract just like you did." And Rico is the guy. And Chuba Hubbard is the guy that we can't even start. He's just a handcuff right now. If anything happens to Rico, then Chuba's back on the menu. But right now, Rico Dowdle is a must-start player. At the wide receiver, Ted McMillan led. Jalen Coker played a lot of snaps, but he still is not playing in two wide receiver sets over Xavier Legette. And Xavier Legette's doing nothing for us. So really, it's just McMillan. And then the tight end rotation is brutal here. I know JT Sanders got 5 targets, but he only ran 17 routes. They're not only rotating with Tommy Tremble, but also Mitchell Evans. So really just a DFS dart throw. See the question in the chat here from Alex. We're going to go through every single game here. So we're going to cover everything. But he says, "Hey, man, what do you think of this trade? Rome, Caleb, and Cook for Jefferson and Bucky. I have JSN, Buka, Judkins, Henderson, May, Woody. What's your record like, Alex? Because I don't like trading for guys like a Marion Hampton or Bucky Irving unless I'm like locked into a playoff spot. Just because you don't know uh, if they're going to be back, and you also don't know what kind of snap share they're going to get right away. I do like trading for Bucky. I do like that trade on paper, especially because you have another quarterback. So I think I'm leaning towards doing that, absolutely. But need to know that you're in a position where you can lose this week and still be fine, or lose next couple weeks. But I do like the trade on paper. Next game here, let's look at the Giants at Bears. Giants lose this one. It's a tough one. They also lost Jackson Dart to a concussion here, so going to have to keep an eye on that. That changes everything for this team, obviously, if he's going to be out. Tyron Tracy led the backfield big time this week. He led in all phases except one. And we break this all down in the RB questionnaire. I always break it down in the questionnaire I do. Who got first down? Who gets the pass downs? Who gets the goal line work? Who gets the 2-minute drill, which is different than just regular pass downs? And who gets the late lead? Who gets the mop up garbage time? Tyrone Tracy led in everything except for goal line and short yardage, right? So that goal line short yardage category, Kevin Singletary got all 9 of those carries. So what they're doing is they're just using Tracy as a starter. He ran 23 routes to only 8 for Singletary. He got 14 carries to only 8 for Singletary. But when it comes to that like crunch time, when you need 1 yard, 3rd and 1, that's going to be Singletary. So keep that in mind moving forward. Like any sort of negative game script is definitely going to favor Tracy. Positive, it's got to be probably a really positive game script for Singletary. But if you're looking for like deep league spot starts, just chasing the touchdown, Singletary's going to get that goal line work. So if there's a pass interference in the end zone, it'll probably be Singletary down there. For the pass catchers, Wan'Dale Robinson was the only guy for the wide receivers to play a big snap share with 70 plus, but Darius Slayton left with a hamstring. So when Slayton's healthy, you can expect it to be Slayton, and Wan'Dale is the full-time guys. I'm not really interested in any of these other wide receivers for this team, even with Jackson Dart in there. But Wan'Dale and Theo Johnson are guys that we can look at. Theo Johnson also played 71 of 73 snaps. They used a lot of 2 tight end sets with Daniel Bellinger, but that doesn't really hurt Theo. It hurts the other wide receivers, which is a good thing for Theo, in my opinion. So we're looking at Wan'Dale. We're looking at Theo as possible options from this team. Daniel Bellinger may be like a DFS dart throw. And yeah, Dynasty Dave, that's what I'm saying. Solo show today. I can bust out a Patriots jersey. I can wear whatever I want. Pats are back, baby. Likes for Laney. And let me tell you, I'm excited for Drake May. I think that he's in the MVP conversation. The thing is, there are some very special performances here. Jonathan Taylor deserves it. Also, Matthew Stafford, 7-2 with 25 touchdowns, only 2 picks. The 2 times I tweeted this out earlier today, the 2 times that he was, like, way out in front or had an MVP caliber season, in both those years, Aaron Rodgers, and this was 10 years apart, 2011 and 2021. In both those years where, Stafford threw 40 touchdown passes, Rodgers just came out and he had more wins and he only had a couple turnovers. I think one year he only had 2 interceptions, one year he had 6. But, like, this year, Stafford's doing what he needs to do. So even as a Patriots fan, I'm rooting for May. Wouldn't be disappointed at all if it was Jonathan Taylor. Wouldn't be disappointed if it was Stafford. I just hope the Patriots can keep it going, man. That's all I'm looking for. And yeah, Pats and Bears. We're talking about the Giants here. Bears won. I was relieved that DeAndre Swift got the hot hand because I did trade for Swift in a league. I traded Waddle for him straight up, and I need him to be a guy. This hot hand talk had me nervous that maybe Kyle Monangai could come away with the hot hand here, but no, Swift had it. Swift led in all phases, so that's really good news for him. For the wide receivers, here's how it broke down, right? Of a possible 41 routes, Odunze ran 34, DJ Moore ran 27. Alameda Zacchaeus ran 27. Loveland ran 23, Burden 20, Komet 19. That's per our friends over at Pro Football Focus, right? So 27 of 41 routes, which is what Moore and Moore and Zacchaeus ran. That represents 65% of the routes, which is not really a ton. So Odunze ran 34. He is the guy that was sort of a full route share. Everybody else was kind of splitting. I mean, Loveland, 23 of 43 routes is like around 50%. That's what you're getting from like Evan Engram. It's what you're getting from Kincaid. So he can still be a guy, but kind of tough to trust. DJ Moore did get a little nicked up. He's got a little shoulder situation going on. So I would expect Odunze and Moore to be full-time players with everyone else kind of rotating. But we'll monitor that DJ Moore situation. If DJ Moore is out, well, now all of a sudden, for streaming options at least, Colston Loveland's back on the table. Rome Odunze is definitely a big-time guy. But Luther Burden also might be a streaming option. So we're going to keep an eye on all that right there. And Caleb Williams is always going to be on our radar here. Tron Forrest comes in and says, I'm down 51, but have Barkley, Devontae Smith, and Goddard going tonight. You think I have a shot? I mean, yeah, it's entirely when you have Saquon Barkley, it's always possible. All things are possible, man. I mean, you look at the games for Jonathan Taylor, you look at the game for Devon Achane. Saquon Barkley is entirely capable of in any given week. The thing that you got to root for tonight is honestly the Packers because you need this game to go shootout mode. Like if the Packers don't push back, then it's going to be hard for you to get to that 51 points, even if the Eagles are awesome. So you need a shootout, man. So I would be betting the over. Maybe if you want to hedge your bet the under, but root for the over for your fantasy football team. Next game here, let's take a peek at let's look at the Jaguars Texans game. So in the Jaguars, here's how it broke down, and this is going to be meaningful moving forward. Basically, Brian Thomas Jr. was out, and with him out, it was Tim Patrick that stepped up into that split end role and worked in his position. And Jacoby Myers, as we knew from what Liam Cohen told us, he said that we're going to have you learn the outside role first and then learn the rest of the role. So what that tells us is the plan for Jacoby Myers is for him to learn the flanker role and then also learn the slot role and then be in that role that Travis Hunter was in, which is the same as we've seen in his offense in the past with Chris Godwin, with Cooper Kupp. Basically, you're operating as for 3 wide receiver sets, you play slot. And then for 2 wide receiver sets, you stay on the field and you go out wide. So he wouldn't have said learn the outside role first if that wasn't the plan. That is the plan. Until that point, though, Parker Washington is going to be in that slot role and playing slot. And maybe Parker Washington will even come in and play slot for 3 wide receiver sets. And maybe Myers just stays outside and they don't do that. I expect them to do it as they told us they're going to. But I think when all is said and done, you're going to have and it's never a 1-for-1, but Liam Cohen's offense from last year, where he was the Buccaneers offensive coordinator, I expect down the stretch, Brian Thomas Jr. to be in the Mike Evans role and Jacoby Myers to be in the Chris Godwin role and Parker Washington to be the 3rd wide receiver that plays for 3 wide receiver sets, but does not play in 2 wide receiver sets. So that makes Parker Washington a potential streamer for the time being, but I think that he's probably an expiring asset in favor of these other 2 guys. I would be looking to sell him if he can. I'd be looking to buy Jacoby Myers if you can. If you can possibly do that. I know it's hard to trade guys like that, but I don't think a lot of people really think deep enough into this stuff. They just look at Parker Washington's last couple games and think, oh, yeah, this guy's great. So if you can sell, he's a sell high for me, absolutely. ETN also led in virtually all the phases like he usually does. He gave up some pass work to Tootin and to LaQuinn Allen like he does, but he'll be absolutely fine, and he's a must start for me pretty much everywhere you have him. For the Texans here, Nico Collins was the only wide receiver to play a full snap share. He ran 45 routes. The next guys were Higgins. Jaden Higgins ran 26, Xavier Hutchinson 27, Kirk 24. So they all kind of rotated. Dalton Schultz, though, ran 40 routes, and Davis Mills obviously loves him. So Dalton Schultz definitely on the radar. Guy needs to be added, potentially spot starts, wherever, because like if he and Nico Collins are going to be the only guys playing the full game, running 40 routes, then that means he could easily be a top 2 target on this team. And he has been. He has been lately. So Dalton Schultz, not super athletic, not a guy we go crazy over, but like in this setup, he's definitely a useful player. So he's going to be moving up the rankings both for me for season long and for weekly. And then the big story here, Woody Marks started the game, played 80% of the snaps, man. That is a really good trend for him. Nick Chubb only basically gets like, he only gets work when it's an obvious positive game script. He was also banged up, so they felt no need to really go crazy with him. So Chubb now probably more of just a handcuff or, a goal line touchdown bet, but Woody Marks trending up for sure. Next game here, let's look at the Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins. Again, this was a tough one for people in survivor leagues that picked them. They were 10-point favorites. They were obvious slam dunks. It was like people were picking between the Bills, the Lions, and the Panthers this week, and the Lions ended up being the right answer on that because the Bills did not show up here. The Bills didn't show up. Everyone rotated. As always, Shakir and Keon Coleman led in routes run, 38 of 46 for Shakir. I mean, Shakir is a full PPR guy that you're starting in those formats. And he can also break off big plays from time to time. So Shakir is fine. Coleman just doesn't really do well in any sort of tough matchup. They honestly they'll even take him out of the game at times for tough matchups. But Dalton Kincaid left with a hamstring here. So that could see a lot more work for these other guys because, Jackson Hawes and Dawson Knox are not Dalton Kincaid. So we'll monitor that. With James Cook, as we know from time to time, he will give up certain parts of the role. Again, there's in my opinion, five parts of being a running back. There's the early down work, right? The starting running back work. There's pass downs, like third downs. There's short yardage goal line. Then there's 2-minute drill, which is a totally separate thing. You got to know all sorts of plays, audibles. You don't come off the field. And then there's late lead. We've seen him give up time in late leads to Ray Davis, but we've also seen him give up pass downs to Ty Johnson. This week, in a rare negative game script, Ty Johnson actually ran more routes than James Cook and actually played more snaps on the game than James Cook. So they do like Ty Johnson for pass downs. That's the one flaw with James Cook is that like you need truly good positive game scripts for him to be really good. And with the Bills, you usually get that. So you still start James Cook every week. It's just there are going to be times where like he's not going to get all the work. That's why he's not going to be in the tier with Bijan or with Christian McCaffrey or Gibbs for us, just based on that alone, because it's possible for him to not play the full workload, right? Didn't Woody Johnson leave with some calf stuff? I circled back to check, and I have to check on that, man. If Woody Johnson is going to miss time, then you keep on stashing Chubb. But I said you stash Chubb anyway. What's up, Jerry? What's popping, dude? Yeah, you can drop Tank Bigsby for Joe Burrow if he's going to come back and play, man. Like Joe Burrow needs to be rostered in virtually any league. Like even if in leagues like where I have Drake May, I'm going to throw Burrow on the bench. One, because I can use him for week 14 bye week, but two, I want to block my opponents. I don't want my opponents getting Joe Burrow to come back and help their team for fantasy playoffs. So, and Bigsby is really just a handcuff. He is a good one, but he's just a handcuff. On the Dolphins side, Devon A. Chance, awesome. As I mentioned, this guy is running the most wide receiver routes that we've seen someone run since 2016, David Johnson. So he plays a ton of wide receiver with Tyreek Hill out. Him and Bijan and Christian McCaffrey are pretty much the tops of the league in that. No one's even close to those three guys. Waddle led the wide receivers as always. Nick Westbrook-Akine played kind of like the obvious rundowns, and Malik Washington got split the reps. I don't really trust either of those guys. It's Waddle that I'm using. Also worth noting, I know he didn't get a ton of work because there was a positive game script here. But Greg Dulcich went from, and we mentioned this last week. I said that when Waller came in, he ran 40% of the routes in his first game, got up to like 64% in the second game. Greg Dulcich, 40% in his 44% in the first game, up to 73%. So he's a sneaky ad. He's going to be a DFS option for us. We did not expect this to be a negative game script. The Bills are also a tough tight end matchup. So Greg Dulcich, a name to know, as long as Waller's out, he's going to be in that Johnny Smith Waller role, and he's fine as a player. So we're looking to scoop him up in the deeper leagues, especially tight end premium. Luke, I know you play a lot of Big Gorilla. You play a lot of FFPC, which is tight end premium. So definitely jump in on that and get him up and running. Ravens Vikings here next game. Zay Flowers, 29 of 33 routes. Bateman also 27 routes. So I'm always intrigued by guys that are playing a good chunk of snaps. Bateman did score a 2-point conversion. Uh, so Bateman is definitely on the streaming radar. DeAndre Hopkins only ran 19 routes. Andrews ran 23, likely ran 17. So again, Andrews is still not a full-time guy. I don't think he's going to be again at any point, but he's getting looks. He's getting end zone looks. He scored the touchdown again. That's one of the things he's great at. So Andrews is definitely a guy you're using in a standard league always, but in half PPR and full PPR is back on the menu too. Derrick Henry oddly dominated the snaps here, even on pass downs. Well, obviously Justice Hill scored on his one carry because that's how that works. But Henry ran more routes than Justice Hill, which is pretty rare for him. So Derrick Henry, he's got an interesting schedule. He's got a couple really good matchups with the Bengals coming up, but he also has the Patriots and the Packers in fantasy playoffs. So I'm kind of torn on where I'm at with Henry. Like, if you're fighting for a playoff spot, his matchup is good, but once you're in the playoffs, it's not that great. But he's Derrick Henry, so you just start him anyway. I'm not really a sell high on Derrick Henry guy, although I know Howard is a little bit worried about his ability as he's getting older here. 6-3, good chance to be 7-3. Then yeah, I do trade for Bucky Irving with those teams. What's up, Albert? Thanks for popping in. We're doing a little solo dolo today, and that's all right. I like talking ball. I like just saying the things that I think need to be said. So next game, rest of this game here, we're looking at the Ravens, Vikings, and we just talked Ravens. On the Viking side, you never have to worry about the usage for Jefferson and Addison. Of 48 routes possible, they both ran 47. They're out there every single play. Jalen Naylor ran 35. That's enough for him to be a DFS dart throw, but we're never going to like add that guy in any sort of normal league, maybe super deep league. Scott Fishbowl, maybe you add Jalen Naylor. And then TJ Hawkinson ran 41 routes. Again, he's out there running routes. The ability to support three fantasy relevant pass catchers always falls onto the scheme and the quarterback. Can it be super highly consolidated? Can the quarterback create enough volume and enough quality passes to support everybody? Right now, the passes are not quality. It's hard for me to trust Addison and Hawkinson every single week. Jefferson, you just start him. I mean, he got a ton of targets, didn't catch a lot of them. What are you going to do? That's the guy I'm starting no matter what. If you want to trade him away for someone of a similar tier, then do it. But if you have him, you play him. He's not going to be any start-sit questions for me. And then Aaron Jones, good news on this front. If you're an Aaron Jones fan, we were a little bit worried about that AC joint on the shoulder, but he played 46 snaps to only 16 for Jordan Mason. So Aaron Jones, for me, he looks great, must-start guy. Jordan Mason really just on the back burner, not super fantasy relevant. Next game here, Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets. Three of the four AFC East teams won this week. The lonely Bills did not. So big win here for the Jets. And we got a comment here on this particular game. On Mason Taylor, I think I've seen a crap trend where they will have him chipping on a big number of supposed to be pure pass routes against tough D lines. If he gets his routes, he's fine. Yeah, he does have a decently high pass block rate, which we don't love, but he does run enough routes that that in normal game scripts for the Jets, which where they're losing, that he gets a decent amount of work. I mean, they only dropped back to pass like 16 times. Taylor led the team in routes with 12, but like they didn't have to throw a ton. They were facing Myles Garrett. So like, yeah, they held him into block a little bit, but Mason Taylor should be fine in most normal game scripts. There's just a lot of tight end options right now. Fading tight end in your drafts and just figuring it out later has always been our biggest advantage. That's why we do the yin and yang tight ends. We just figure that stuff out. So Right now, I'm content with stashing Mason Taylor, but yeah, he's tough to start. Garrett Wilson left with a knee injury. That saw Arian Smith and Tyler Johnson as the two outside wide receivers. Isaiah Williams played in three wide receiver sets in the slot. Again, very difficult to trust any of those guys, man. It's kind of just Garrett Wilson as a start when he's healthy. Mason Taylor is a guy we're stashing and only spot starting. And then Brees Hall got virtually all the carries, but he did give up, as always, some pass work to Isaiah Davis. But Brees Hall is still a guy that I'm, again, starting every week. I don't know what kind of leagues you guys are in where you're not starting Brees Hall, but those guys are locked in for me. On the Brown side of things, Jerry Jeudy led with 42 routes. Basically, we got back to what it was supposed to be, what it was trending towards a while back, which is that Jerry Jeudy and Tillman are the top two wide receivers, and then Fannin plays over Njoku in a passing capacity, right? Like Njoku's an inline blocking tight end now, kind of to some degree. Fannin ran 33 routes, Njoku ran 23, and that's with Fannin being banged up. So it's kind of back to what it was. Tillman's back on the radar. All these guys, Jamari Thrash, Isaiah Bond, whatever, don't need to be rostered. And then Judkins got virtually all the carries. Here's what they're doing. Judkins got virtually all the carries, and then they split the pass work three ways. 15 routes for Judkins, 16 for Sampson, 12 for Ford. But Sampson and Ford they split all the 2-minute drill. They split all the third down. Like Judkins is now the third back for pass downs. Like it went Sampson, and then if it wasn't Sampson, it was Ford, and then Judkins got like one of those plays. So Judkins is kind of just like an early down bruiser for this team, but he's very good. So he'll still be a guy that we're looking to start, but like just know that he's not getting the full role. These other guys are getting a ton of the pass work there. So that's what's going on with the Browns. And I'm sure at some point we're going to potentially see Shadur Sanders if they keep losing to teams like the Jets. On to the hottest team in football, New England Patriots 28-23. Gotta love it. Of 36 pass plays. So Kayshon Boutte was out. We got to see a couple other guys. Basically, what they did is Mac Hollins got the full work. They didn't just elevate Kyle Williams all the way up, which we wanted to see. We did see a very long touchdown from him. That was awesome. Big day for Patriots rookies. But Kayshon Boutte ran 30 routes. Diggs ran 28. This is of 36, so pretty decent amount. And then Kyle Williams ran 21. Hunter Henry ran 29. So it was Hollins, Diggs, and Henry as the main guys. Kyle Williams was kind of rotating in a little bit, and he made the big play. But Mac Hollins was kind of the hero of this game. He was the guy that they leaned on in that Kayshon Boutte role. And then, well, actually, the real hero, Travion Henderson. The people that have been waiting for it, they finally got what they needed. 61 snaps for him, only 6 for D'Ernest Johnson, 5 for Terrell Jennings. This is what we've seen from the Patriots all year. It's not even that Henderson's been playing bad, is that Ramondre Stevenson in this couple of these games played really well. Ramondre came out in one of these games. I forget, it might have been the Titans game a couple weeks ago. He basically the first drive, he on 4 straight plays ran them all the way down into field goal range. And that's what Vrabel said. He was like, it's not that Henderson was playing bad. Ramondre came out and played great and got us into field goal range on the very first drive, but now that Henderson's getting his shot and he's the hot hand, he's getting all the touches and he looked great. So you want to see more of him. At least we want to see the split where it's like Henderson gets all the creative pass downs and open field stuff, and maybe Ramondre is just a bruiser back. We'll see when he gets back, but good stuff there. We also saw Patriots use a little bit more fullback. Historically, the Josh McDaniels for the Patriots has used a ton of fullback guys like James Devlin and those type of guys. Jack Westover got 15 snaps, so that's really good for the run game if they're going to keep doing that. On the Buccaneers side, it's about what we would expect. It was like Buka and Tez on the outside. Shepard played slot. K-Dot, when they're down to one elite wide receiver, no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, no Jalen McMillan, then we see a ton of K-Dot, and he got 12 targets. So he's on the spot start radar. There's obviously a very, very good matchup. Patriots have not been good against the tight end, so we'll keep seeing that. And then Rachaad White is the starting back, but he gives up a ton of run work to Sean Tucker. That makes me really nervous. Don't really love Rachaad White until Bucky Irving gets back. And is Travion Henderson this year's Bucky? Come on, Vrabel. I mean, possibly. We're hoping that he gets more work. I mean, he feel like he might have earned it here. He looked really good out there. So hopefully he gets hot right at the right stretch. Hopefully the people with Travion Henderson are still alive. I know a lot of best ball teams out there have obviously been hurting, but if you can advance with Travion Henderson, still could be in a really good spot with those. So exciting times there. Buccaneers are going to be fine. That's the thing is that the Buccaneers, like, they could have easily won that game. They also are missing a bunch of their really good players. So Patriots schedule has just been so very good and friendly. I'll take it. I'll take whatever they get. Cardinals here. And these are the 4 o'clock games, the 3, 4 o'clock games. All of them were just like blowouts. So you kind of throw the usage out of the window for the winning team, right? So for instance, with the Seahawks, 2 fumbles for touchdowns really ruined this game script. So Cody White led the Seahawks wide receivers in snaps this week because they was just kind of in garbage time for pretty much most of the game, and they were just kind of mixing and matching. Like Cody White led the wide receivers in routes run, and Nick Callerup led the tight ends in snaps. So you kind of throw that out the window. They used a ton of fullback because they were in a ton of like clock eating mode, and they with Kenneth Walker vultured, Kenneth Walker getting vultured by not only Charbonnet, by George Halani. I mean, this game for what we do on this show with like the behind the scenes metrics, you kind of just throw it away. I think at the end of the day, JSN's locked in. The only question is we wanted to see how much Rashid Shaheed would play versus Cooper Kupp, but because of the weird game script, they really didn't need to do much like heavy pass sets. So we didn't really see what that's going to look like. Gonna have to wait another week. But Shaheed knows the playbook. He knows the plays. Got a couple handoffs, got a look, but like they didn't really need to do much on that front. Even JSN only played like half the snaps, just one of those games. On the Cardinal side, though, we got at least got an idea of what it looks like in a negative game script. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson both ran 51 of 54 routes. So they were out there virtually the whole game. Greg Dortch was the wide receiver 3, but he only ran 21 routes because they use a lot of 2 tight end sets. It's a lot of McBride. Also Elijah Higgins. Elijah Higgins is one of the best handcuffs in football, in fantasy football. And I know people are like, oh, yeah, well, what about like Tyler Algier? Yeah, he's one of the best handcuffs too. If something happens to Bijan, you're going to get a guy that you can start every week. And I truly believe that if something were to happen to Trey McBride, you would get a guy in Elijah Higgins that you could start every single week. That could be this year's Trey McBride, or could be this year's Isaiah Likely, at least, where like you're just starting that every week down the stretch because he's going to be in a full-time awesome role in this game. So just keep that in mind with Elijah Higgins. If you have a really deep leagues, I'm stashing him in the Scott Fish Bowl. I'm stashing him in some FFPC leagues, some like really deep industry leagues. I just have him there because like if everyone's going to roster all of these guys like Blake Corum and DJ Giddens and all these, Nick Chubb and these like handcuffs for running backs, I'm going to roster the number 1 tight end handcuff, which is Elijah Higgins. So know that name. He would be, if Trey McBride were to suffer a season-ending injury, which nobody's rooting for that, and nobody even likes to talk about it. But if that were to happen, Elijah Higgins is a guy that I would dump like 75% of my fab on him. That's how I feel about this guy. He's a converted wide receiver, and that plays tight end for a team that uses a tight end as a wide receiver. Absolutely has to be on your radar in every sense of the way. So yes. Matt Collins pick up in the Fans Classic. Exactly. That kind of league. Kings Classic is the kind of league where I have a guy like Elijah Higgins. These are very deep leagues, 14-team leagues, absolutely crazy situations. So KJ Frederick, I'm up 16 heading into tonight. I have Christian Watson and McManus playing. My opponent has Barkley. It's entirely possible because the Packers defense is good. So like Barkley going crazy, I would pencil Barkley in for those 16 points. That's just the kind of guy he is. You need Watson to do a little something, and you need McManus to give you a couple field goals. The thing is, having a kicker like that, super underrated because that guy can go out and score you 9 points, and then now Barkley needs 25, right? So I think you're going to actually be all right. And yeah, I want to see Trey Benson take over as well. Charbonnet a better start than Walker in standard, maybe, but I still believe in Kenneth Walker. But yeah, he's getting the goal line work, and I think that's fair, man. If you want to play that game. But the thing with Sharps, when he scores, it's like what? A lot of these games for Sharps, when he scores a touchdown, he scores like 7 or 8 points. It's really not even that good of a game. People complain to me about Kyle Pitts, but he scores in 8 of his, or 8 of his 10 games now. He has more than 7.5 PPR points, and people complain about that. So if Butte misses next week again, better New England wide receiver, Mac or Pop. The thing with Pop is Pop only plays like 15 snaps. You let me pull it up. Like in any given week, he's not playing a ton of snaps, but when he goes in, they have like designed plays for him. So for instance, Pop this week, 2 targets. He only played 13 snaps, right? But he ran 11 routes. They really don't like his blocking ability. Last week, he once again only played like 14 snaps, but got like 5 targets. Mac Hollins, if Butte is out, is definitely the better option. This week, Mac had 48 snaps, Douglas had 13. And Mac had 30 routes run, Douglas had 11. This is per Pro Football Focus. And 10 targets for Mac for 2 for Douglas. So it is Mac Hollins if Butte's out. Now, if Butte's back, then both those guys are part-time guys, and you can just use whoever you feel like using. You should probably use somebody from a different team, in my opinion, which we cover all that in the waiver articles and stuff like that. So we'll have you covered there. What were we talking about before we did that? We were talking about Seahawks, Cardinals, and now we're talking about Rams, 49ers. There we go. Solo Dolo show. That's the one thing I need Iggy for is that take a little, besides taking a breath every once in a while, Iggy keeps the show on track. So he'll be back on Monday. Next game here, Rams at 40. Let me know if I'm also talking too fast. I do have a tendency to talk way too fast when I do these solo shows, but you guys don't want to be hanging out for 2 hours talking about this stuff. We're trying to get the information in and get it done so that you can say, okay, here's what happened in those games. Tomorrow we do the waiver wire show with Howard, and that's more fun. It's joking around. Wednesday, it's whatever you guys want to do. Trades, DFS, whatever. Once the trade deadlines come, that show becomes whatever you guys want it to be, which is a lot of fun. And then Thursday is a start sit show. Friday, we bring a guest on. This week, I'm bringing in Johnny and Pemba, and we're just going to crush an FFPC lineup. But we got some fun guests coming up after John. We got Johnny, who's obviously the QB guru. He's a monster. We got Ian Harditz. We got all these guys coming on. So that's going to be fun too. Today, it's about business. We're getting this squared away. So next game here, Rams 49ers. Again, another blowout. Backups for the Rams came in early. Sean McVay said that Devontae Adams left with an oblique issue, but would have gone back in the game if it was a closer game. So if this was like, basically he just would have played. That's what Devontae Adams is, but because they were up big, he went out and they relied on the other options there. Let me just see, just for the record here. So with him out, with Devontae Adams out, Kanata Mumfield came in and played a decent amount of kind of heavier sets because Jordan Whittington was banged up and Tutu Atwell is on IR. So Kanata Mumfield and Xavier Smith. Xavier Smith ran more routes than Mumfield. So Mumfield's a bigger guy. He played more like pass downs, but Xavier Smith Mumfield probably would have been in the Adams role. So I guess, it's Jordan Whittington that you would want if Adams misses time. That's who you'd want. So, but keep an eye on the injuries. If Whittington were to be out too, then I guess we'd look at Kanata Mumfield. The backups came in early. Blake Corum played a bunch of garbage time. The tight ends rotated the entire game. It wasn't just garbage time. Colby Parkinson and Davis Allen and Terrence Ferguson and Tyler Higbee. I don't trust any of them. I love Terrence Ferguson in Dynasty. I think Higbee's probably gone after this year, so that's a Dynasty stash, but you don't need any of those guys in redraft unless it's like a crazy deep league. On the 49ers side, it was Juwan Jennings and Kendrick Bourne as the primary wide receivers. This is going to be weird down the stretch for this team because they use a ton of fullback. They use a ton of 2 tight ends. Basically, they always really just focus on 2 wide receivers. We have no clue who it's going to be in 2 wide receiver sets out of Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne. My leaning would be that if Pearsall can get back and get on the field, then it will be Jennings and Pearsall. And then Ayuk, they'll ease him in off his serious knee injury as a part-time player, which means that, but there's a real possibility where if Pearsall doesn't get healthy, then Ayuk comes back and ends up being that guy. Jennings is the guy I like having because I think no matter what, I feel like he's going to be one of those 2 wide receivers. He's been with the team the longest. He's in the past played those situations. So Juwan Jennings, for me, could be a buy low type guy if you can go out and get him because I think his role is the one that's the least likely to change moving forward. Kittle had good usage, ran a ton of routes, got 9 targets. His schedule has been terrible. Falcons are really good against the tight end. Texans are really good against the tight end. Rams are top 6-7 team in DVOA against the tight end. Kittle, also a guy I'm buying low for when Brock Purdy's back. And then Christian McCaffrey is just awesome. So what do you just start him every single week. He's the man. Just cruising through the chat. I'm up 17. He's got Packers defense and dubs. You should be fine, man. You should be fine because Eagles should be able to do work against that Packers defense. Dobbs could score 2 touchdowns in any given week, but this guy's never had a 100-yard regular season game. He had 1 in the playoffs. So you're good. I need Devonta Smith to outscore A.J. Brown tonight. Entirely possible, but I would bet on A.J. Brown. And yes, I'm here to see if we're playing the Calcaterra wine mixer. I don't think we are. I think Dallas Goedert's good to go for tonight. But if we are, you will see it on Twitter at Coupe Fiasco. I'll be sounding the horn, firing up the engines, playing O Fortuna and all those tunes. Last couple games here, or last two games here. Again, these 4 p.m. games were brutal. All three of them were 40 to 20 games. So blowout here for the Lions. JMO and our ARSB we're playing big snap shares. They're guys you can use, but ARSB is locked in. JMO is more of like a spot start type guy for me. He's on the fringe because he just doesn't get the volume, and he's not getting as many carries as I'd like to see. Khalif Raymond was third, but only 17 routes. Isaac Tesla, only 8 routes out of a possible 35. So Johnny Morton's coach speak about more Isaac Tesla didn't really prove to be anything. Sam Laporta ran 25 of 35 routes. Again, this is like a better version of what the Vikings have, where you have one awesome locked in wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then you have a tight end and another wide receiver kind of competing for targets each week. Neither one of them really is like a 10 target guy. Neither one is necessarily ahead of the other in any given week. We really don't like that setup for fantasy. We really would prefer, unless there's like a fullback and again, a bunch of blocking tight ends and no one else is getting targets except for the top 3 guys, then we can live with that. You know what I mean? But like, it is tough. But Laporta, again, in this environment, you just start him every week. In the blowout, David Montgomery got more work. So there you go. Super positive game scripts are going to favor David Montgomery, but for the most part, it's Jahmyr Gibbs in every phase, and Montgomery doesn't really have a role. I guess now we know that he's going to be the mop-up guy. So I'll update the RB questionnaire with that to show those 5 roles. But like, I don't know, tough to trust Monty. What's the difference between David Montgomery and Tyler Algier these days? The Monty's on a better team. Usage wise, very similar, but Monty's on a better team. So that's where that is. Commanders here, Debo led with 42 snaps. Treylon Burks was second, but only 21 of 54. Chris Moore, I don't know if he got hurt, but he had usually been playing big snap shares, not this week. Jalen Lane and Robbie Chosen each ran like 15 routes. Can't trust any of those guys except Debo right now until McLaurin gets back. It's going to be Debo and McLaurin. Zach Ertz you can use if you need to. There was a 3-man committee at running back with JCM and C-Rod and McNichols. 24 snaps for JCM, 18 for C-Rod, but he got the touchdown. 17 for McNichols. He plays on pass downs. Just not a good setup for fantasy. We do not want to see these 3-headed monster backfields. It's not great. How concerned should you be with your 2 QBs, Bo and Sam Darnold? I mean, not really at all. I mean, Sam Darnold has been good. The game script, again, you got to throw these out the window. 2 fumbles for touchdowns on like kind of dicey calls really messed up the game script. They did not have to throw it all. So I'm still very confident in Sam Darnold. Bo Nix, he'll be fine too. So I'm not too worried about those guys. Last game here, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Chargers. Metcalf ran 34 routes. Calvin Austin ran 31. That's at a 35. So Austin is a streaming option if you need it in deeper leagues. I'll have him in the streamers articles this week as well. Jonnu, 22. So this is out of 35. 22 routes for Jonnu, 17 from Muth, 6 for Washington. I've been telling you guys all year, don't trust those guys. If you could have one like big Megatron Steelers tight end that you could start and get all the points, that would be one thing. But like, I don't like that guessing game. I don't like Arthur Smith. I hope that this team fails from a fantasy perspective because we don't want copycat teams going in and using a bunch of weird tight end sets, and it's just not good for fantasy. So get rid of all of them. In a super negative game script here, Kenneth Gainwell actually ran 25 routes to only 10 for Jaylen Warren. Warren has been the pass down back in the past, but they flipped that. And now he's in the Najee role, and Kenneth Gainwell is in the Warren's old role. So Gainwell got a ton of those pass snaps, but Warren got 13 carries and Gainwell had 0. And I think Caleb Johnson had like 1 or 2. So like, if you think the Steelers are going to get crushed, then Kenneth Gainwell is potentially on the menu. If you think it's a good game script for the Steelers, then it should be a good game for Jaylen Warren. I think that's how it's going to play out. With the Chargers, Kamani Vidal, 68 snaps out of 73. So if Trevor Penning can get it together and kind of help that line be decent with no Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, Vidal is a guy you start every week until Marion Hampton gets back. QJ ran 37 routes. McConkey ran 35. Only 24 for Keenan Allen, 13 for Trey Harris. Keenan Allen is a guy that full PPR, you can utilize him. Otherwise, I'm not super interested. And Orlando Gadsden left with a knee issue. I'm not interested in the backup tight ends over there, the Tyler Conklins and the Will Disleys. I just hope Gadsden's okay because he's just a different player than anything else they have, and we're hoping that he's going to be fine. So that's the roundup, guys. 45 minutes, not too bad. Iggy should be back next week to help me not have to just ramble the entire time. I appreciate you guys for hanging out. If there's anything you want to see or anything that we kind of stuff that you want to like other data, pass block snaps, things like that that we might have missed, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you guys want to see for this show because this show is whatever you guys want it to be. I have all the information. I go dig through all of it. I just pull out what I think is going to help you guys, help us win, and help us be ahead of the waiver wire. So let me know in the comments or wherever else if there's anything that you wanted to see or that we missed. Should we drop Chris Godwin and let another team take the risk of maybe playing this year? Godwin falls in the category for me of guy that I only drop if I need to add a player to my team that's going to start for me this week, if that makes sense. Like I'm stashing Godwin permanently. If I have an IR spot, he's in there, but I'm stashing him permanently just to see if I can have him for fantasy playoffs. But if you get one of those weeks where you have, like, for instance, let's say you went into this week and you had CD Lamb and George Pickens and Travis Kelsey and Dak Prescott, and you had a 5-man bench, and 4 of the guys on your bench were on bye week, and you had to pick up a tight end to start for Kelsey, and the only player you could drop is Chris Godwin, then I drop Chris Godwin because I'm not going to drop Dak Prescott. I'm not going to drop George Pickens, right? I'm not going to drop Kelsey. So he is falls into that category now where he is droppable, but I'm only going to drop him if it's to add a player that starts for me. I'm not going to drop him to stash another upside play because nobody on the wire has more upside than Chris Godwin. Does that make sense? So that's where he falls in that category for me. It's not a landmine that I'm like trying to plant on another team. I don't want another team to have Chris Godwin. Last year, when he got hurt, he was the wide receiver 2 in all of fantasy. Mike Evans isn't coming back. Jalen McMillan has a broken neck. Like he could come back hypothetically and get healthy in the end of November and be a guy that wins leagues, you know? So I'm hoping to push through some best ball teams that have Godwin just in case. So there you go. They mentioned that Cincinnati opening them up the 21-day window for Burrow. Deb, he's got to be rostered, man. I'm sorry, woman. Just solo show 47 minutes in. My brain is cooked. So Deb, you got to go out and throw them on benches. Throw them on benches, especially if you have an IR spot. Joe Burrow is too good to be on the wire. There's not enough quarterbacks that have the upside of that type of player. So guys like Godwin and Burrow, absolutely, I'm stashing. But that's it for me. As always, thank you guys for popping in. Really appreciate it with the solo shows. Solo shows without people in the comments hanging out, I gotta say, brutal. It's nice to have people popping in. We love to see you guys. KJ, Kyle, Jerry, Luke, Deb, Ani Coop, everybody popping in, Albert, Alex. Thank you guys so much, man. You guys will keep the Fantasy Alarm family going, man. And keep these shows fun. So thank you so much. KJ, can you drop some data on the best wide receiver CV matchups we can exploit before the waiver wire periods? There's definitely teams. It's a range, and I love. That's why you got to check the wide receiver CB matchup report that Drew does for us every week. It is so good. I'm telling you guys, man, because there's 3 ranges, and on his matchup report, he has green for good matchups, yellow for neutral, red for bad. So we know we want to avoid guys like Christian Gonzalez, Sauce Gardner, J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain when he's healthy, right? Those guys are really problematic. We want to avoid the Falcons in general, right? Then, there's a lot of neutral matchups out there that are just like, okay, we're not going to even think about them. Then there's some really good ones. You know what I mean? There's the Bengals for anything, Bengals for running backs, Bengals for wide receivers. There's the Bears. You know what I mean? So you want to go through and look at his matchup report every week because it's so much more comprehensive than just saying, "Oh, play guys against the Bengals." He goes in and looks at the odds that somebody's going to be on the outside, the odds that somebody's going to be playing, in the slot, and what that matchup looks like. And he'll give you the green, the yellow, the red on whether or not that's going to be a good matchup. So always be checking that every single week. Drew does that, man. So it's going to be great. So thank you guys so much for coming in and hanging out today. I'll tell you, Salty, one last question for Salty. I might lose because I didn't play Stafford over Herbert. Should have trusted my gut over the projection. Who would you have played? I believe that I had Herbert ranked ahead. I mean, the Steelers have been one of the worst, if not the worst, pass defenses. They've let up the most yards per game. So you really should not blame yourself for starting Herbert. I had Herbert at QB 4, and I had we had Stafford as QB like 10. But Stafford's been great. But let me just the matchup was there. You did the right thing. It's like going all in when you have pocket aces. Sometimes you lose, but you made the high percentage call, and that's what we're doing here. We're trying to put ourselves in the best situation to succeed, right? We're trying to give ourselves the best odds and hope that it falls in our favor. And that's what makes poker and fantasy football so fun is that this game, and I assure you this is true, this game would not be fun if anyone couldn't win. We want a game where anyone can win. The best game is, in my opinion, is one where anyone can win, but the people that do the math and the people that pay attention to the right details and the people that study and put in the work have an advantage. You want to sit down at the table knowing that of the 12 people in your league or the 12 people in your poker table, yes, hypothetically everybody should have like a 8% chance to win, but you actually have a 25% chance to win because you're a fantasy all member, because you put in the work, because you have the extra tools, because you're watching this show on a Monday after. And not only did you watch the games yesterday, but now you've got all the behind the scenes info. And then there's some guy at your team that the table that doesn't care. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just looking at some random rankings, and his odds of winning are like 5%. Yes, he can win. And I'm glad he can win. I'm glad she can win, or whoever it is. I'm glad they have a chance to win, but we want the game to be skewed towards us, and that's how fantasy football works. And we're putting in the work, and you did the best you could, and it turned out to be a bad beat. Bad beats happen, and that's what makes it so fun. That's why we watch every Sunday. So thank you guys for tuning in. Tomorrow we'll be back for waivers. But again, before I even mention that, if you do want to get all the tools and get all the advantages you can, right now we have a deal going, 50% off for the next month if you use promo code YT50 over at Fantasy Alarm. So that's only $20. You're going to win that back in DFS. You're going to win your leagues. You're going to, be the champion and be able to throw the crown on or your chain. We're doing some chains here. We're working on a deal with with an awesome company that does chains. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, 50% off your first month of All Pro with promo code YT50, and you can get the advantages that we have. And that way, you leave the poker table, broke with flies coming out of your wallet. If that keeps happening to you, become a Fantasy Alarm member, and then you'll be the guy that has the advantage out there. So tomorrow we'll be back with Waiver Wire, me and Howard Bender. Wednesday, we're going to do trades and DFS. Thursday, we're going to do start sits. And then Friday, it's a guest show. As always, my guest, Johnny and Pemba, and I are going to put it up on FFPC. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and for supporting me here on a little solo dolo, a little throwback. We still got it. So thanks, everybody. Until tomorrow, I'm out of here.
Adios, turd nuggets.